And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. You're tuned in to Tapped Out. Hosted by Brendan Tobin and Sean Levine. Only on the BetQL network.
I like Ige in the fight only because I don't like Damon Jackson's tattoo that you just pointed out to me. What is that thing? I mean, it's better than whatever's on Kelvin Gastelum's face right now, but what is that thing?
I don't know, dude. He's just got like two lines going up and down his back. Like it makes his back look like the freeway. I don't understand what's going on there.
Yeah. No reason to bet against the guy right now. He's plus 110. That fight just started. Ige came into this fight as a slight favorite at minus 135, and he's coming out hot. Who you like in the main event of this one tonight? Sean Strickland and Nasruddin Imavov, the only one we're waiting on after this.
Oh, man. I am going to go with Imavov. I think that Sean, I just am worried, dude. Like the idea that he is basically, he was on our show and discussing about, this is what he does for a living.
Everything.
I feel like,
yeah.
Oh, he discussed everything. Yes, fair enough. But he, was just basically saying, like, look, I think he had an opportunity to make some money on a short notice. Didn't have to cut any weight to do it. He's a tough guy. I just think that's tough. You're just being dropped in the middle of everything and saying, "Hey, go ahead, go win a main event." I'm worried about with him, and he has lost his last two fights. Although, look, the Cannonier fight was close. I picked Cannonier, so obviously that's how I see it going that night. So I'm biased on that. But I get it. I get his gripe with that fight. And, maybe he comes out and surprises us and does something different. I just don't think he's going to. I feel like he's always going to be who he is. And I feel like Imavov can handle that. I guess the only question is, this is a main event spotlight for him. And, as Feezy was saying, like, is that going to concern him? I don't know. I feel like these guys prepare their butts off for it. They work for it. I think he'll be ready for it.
A couple of big fights got announced basically as we went on air today. Rafael Fiziev will be taking on Justin Gaethje in London. And then looks like we're going to see the return of Bones Jones. We've been talking about this for a long, long time. John Jones and Cyril Gane. What style? Like, how do you see that one going down? Because we haven't seen John in a really long time.
It's a fascinating question because I do see a lot of like John Jones qualities in Cyril Gane. But man, it's just the wrestling. And I think that's going to be the thing everybody goes to with this is like, you saw how Gane lost to Francis Ngannou. And yeah, I guess we could look at it and say Francis Ngannou's the freak of all freaks. We're going to actually sit here and say John Jones isn't a freak. This guy's been a freak since 19 years old. I mean, I guess technically he's been a freak his whole life, but to walk into the UFC as 19, be the youngest UFC champion, do all of these things, have some of the greatest fights of all time, do lots of drugs, come back, win a title again. I just feel like he took his time for a purpose. He methodically built up his body. He's going to move around great. I get the hesitancy to take him because you're like, well, Gane is one of the best heavyweights on the planet right now, and John has been on the shelf. I get that, but I think we've seen John at his best and how when he's motivated, that's the thing that's key to me. When he's motivated, and I think he will be because he knows what it would mean if he wins this fight. I think it shuts any questions you have of his legacy up at all. And I think that's a dangerous thing. What he's going to be like after that, I mean, I think is almost more of a wild card than the first one back. I feel like the first one back, we may get one of the best John Joneses we've ever seen. How he handles it after that is going to be the question.
It's not just the time off, though, because if it was just the time off, I would agree with you. Nobody has gave themselves more experience at taking time off than coming back after a year or two. Maybe Conor McGregor, now that I say it out loud. But those guys have figured it out. But with John, it's not just that. With John, let's just call it what it is. He didn't look great in the second Gus fight. He didn't look that good at all against Dominic Reyes. And then I think, I'm not saying he went running from light heavyweight, but it felt like he cleared out the division, and I agree with him. Now he's fighting in a weight class that all these other guys have a lot of experience fighting in. So it's the time off. It's not looking the same the last time we saw you, and now you're fighting up. There's a lot of things. It's not just the time off.
No, I mean, well, look, he did look good in that second Gustin fight. He dominated him, and I think that was one where it's motivated because that was a close fight between them, and then that meant something to him. DC fights does mean something to him. When it's Santos, when it's Reyes,
that was
I understand.
So long
I
ago,
understand.
bro.
I know they were long ago, but still, like, this guy has more experience of coming off layoffs than anybody in the history of the sport. That's like he should have his own black belt for that. Just time off, coming back and doing awesome stuff. John Jones. It should be his own martial art. Like I don't know.
I was going to ask you real quick, who do you like in that Fiziev Gaethje fight? We've always talked about if those two guys got an octagon together, it's going to be a banger. But as far as the odds go, pick them. I mean, you're going to get a lot of money coming on both sides.
Man, that's a good question. What are the odds going to be for that fight?
Gaethje maybe a slight favorite because
I feel like that's
been around a little bit longer.
You're kind of on the same track with me. I feel like that's the case. I don't know if people are quite on the Fiziev bandwagon yet. I feel like a lot of people who are junkies and like us, I think they're gonna fly to Rafael and put their money on him if he is the underdog. But I could see a guy like Justin. I think it's gonna be very close. Let me say that. I think the odds will be very close, but I think they'll lean towards Gaethje. Early
Damon
on.
Jackson, Dan Ige going at it right now, and then coming up the main event. Sean Strickland and Nazardine Imavov. I don't know that fight's going to start before we get off the air here in a couple of minutes. So I like Strickland. I like him by knockout, even though you can only get like 3-1 on your money if he does it. It's been a while, and he needs it. Let's turn the page forward because next week we got a pay-per-view, first time in 2023, and talk about a few of these fights. Johnny Walker back on the main card taking on Paul Craig. I had Johnny Walker at 18-1 by submission his last fight. Damn it if he didn't choke that guy out. I think I'm going to play that one again. I'm ready to see Johnny Walker fight again.
I'm ready to see Johnny Walker do awesome stuff too. I miss Johnny. Johnny Walker came out. You want to talk about a guy who started his UFC career?
He was the dude.
He was the dude. Coming out making love to your camera. Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, but Paul Craig is, he's coming off that loss to Uzdemir, but before that he was rolling a little bit. That's a tough, close fight, but I think it'd be nice to see Johnny Walker, kind of get something together again because I feel like he's a fun fighter. He does wild stuff. Just don't do the worm, dude. Like, don't celebrate and just keep it to on your feet, please. Do the hip thrust that you do where you get the TV pregnant.
Noted Miami Dolphins fan on the card next Saturday night. He is Dorino. He is Gilbert Burns taking on Neil Magny. Gilbert Burns was incredible against Hamzat to the point where I thought he was good. And then I had a whole different level. I think a lot of people had a whole different level of respect for him, even though he'd already fought for a belt. Like, this is a great fighter. But in our sport, we say styles make fights. I don't know, man. Like, Neil Magny stuff, he's a bad matchup for everybody. Kind of a bad matchup for Burns, too. But I'm still playing Dorino.
Yeah, I am too. I think, Gilbert to me is like, he's almost the Dustin Poirier of welterweight right now. Like,
right.
He's just that damn good. And I will take him basically anytime except maybe against like the top guy. And even then, I still think he has a chance. He's that special. He is
like Colby.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, it's just, he is built himself up from, to be such a good striker and all that work. So it's hard for me to pick against him in any matchup, but certainly I think against Neil Magny, I like Dorino in that one.
The co-main event next Saturday night, UFC 283, is going to be for the fourth time, Davidson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno. We haven't gotten too much into the whole James Krause situation just because it's kind of sticky and kind of messy, and we're waiting on all the information to come out, but it doesn't look good for Krause. I can say that.
That's your boy.
He's not my guy. He just happens to be in Kansas City.
You guys got
his facility is like 15 minutes away from where I'm talking to you right now. But I mean, terms were used like insider and agent and offshore and all the stuff you don't want to hear. For people that don't know, recently Brandon Moreno has been training with James Krause. The UFC said, hey, if you train with James Krause, you ain't fighting the UFC for a while until we get this all figured out. So Moreno, like everybody else, said, I got to go otherwise. Do you think that affects him in this fight versus Davidson Figueiredo?
I think that if it was honestly against anybody else, I think that it would. But because he's got such a history with Davidson, like, do you even need to game plan for this one? You have so much data on the guy. Maybe it's good to actually go somewhere different and learn a little something new and bring that to the table. Maybe something that Figueiredo's not expecting. Because I feel like if you go 4 fights and they've all been very close, and that one was a coin toss. The first one was a draw. Moreno, super emotional win. The second one, like, I feel like it's almost great to have a new wrinkle to come in the next fight to it. So I don't think it's going to affect him. If it was against another top flyweight, I would say it would be a concern. But I think that this is it almost lines up for him great that he's taking on an opponent he knows so well.
Over an hour, BT. Those guys have been in the octagon together.
Crazy.
It's great. Fighting each other for over an hour experience. So, yeah, it's not like anything new is going to happen. All right, then the main event next week, Glover Teixeira takes on Jamal Hill. For a main event, leaves a little bit to be desired. Luckily, it's a pretty fun card up and down. I think Glover gets his belt back. He's 43 years old, and to say that it's his time, it's past his time. But it's been past his time for a while. Jamal Hill's great. I think Glover chokes him out next Saturday night.
I wonder, too, like, does Glover still keep going after this? Like, what does he do? Because could you imagine winning the belt in Rio? Like, what a moment that's got to be for him. How does he get better than that? I mean, unless he says he wants to, wants to get another one, wants to get it right on Yuri. But man, I feel like that'd be such a cool moment to win the belt and walk away, and then the light heavyweight division back up in the air.
It felt like Yuri, for whatever reason, had more beef with Glover than the other way around. Like, Yuri's the one that said that he wanted the rematch, even after beating him the first time. It was such a great fight. So I'm with you, man. Like, Glover, this feels like Glover wins and lays down the gloves in the middle of the octagon. And when he's gone, like, he's not one of these guys that's in their late 20s or early 30s that, like, who knows if Khabib ever comes back. We don't know that. Or,
I mean, he's also 43 and still fighting, though.
What's he going to come back at 47? Get out of here. If he wins, he lays him down. He's done. It's like you said, the Goosies for all of us. Speaking of for all of us, that's it for the show. Appreciate our guest, Wheezy. Appreciate Brendan Tobin. Appreciate Jake. Appreciate everybody from the BetQL Network. And you for checking us out. We'll catch you next week on the Sports Machine, Sean Levine. And you're locked into the BetQL Network. Good night.